The alien ship appeared without warning above New York City. Its massive form blocked out the sun as it descended through the clouds, like a floating mountain made of black metal and pulsing lights. People screamed and ran through the streets. As the enormous vessel came to rest just above the tallest buildings, Alex Reed had been working late at the Global Defense Headquarters when every alarm in the facility started screaming at once. The massive screens showed the ship hovering motionless, while smaller craft detached from its hull and spread across the planet. Within minutes, similar ships appeared over London, Tokyo, Moscow, and every major city on Earth. The first transmission came exactly 1 hour after their arrival. Every television, radio, and internet connection on the planet carried the same message. The voice was deep and somehow wrong, like it was speaking through water. Humans of the third planet. I am Vel of the Hegemony. We have watched your world for many cycles and found it suitable for our needs. Your planet produces warriors, stronger than most species in the galaxy. This is because your world tries to kill everything that lives on it. Dr. Emma Walsh rushed into the command center carrying a tablet full of readings from the alien ships. Her hands shook as she spoke to Alex. These things are massive. The energy readings are off any scale we have. Their smallest ships could destroy our largest cities without effort. The alien voice continued its message across all channels. We invite Earth to join the Deathworld Pact. This alliance brings together the strongest species from the harshest planets in the galaxy. In exchange for your service in our military forces, we offer protection from threats you cannot imagine and technology beyond your current understanding. Alex studied the data streaming across the monitors. The aliens had ships positioned around the entire planet. Resistance would be suicide, but surrender might be worse. He had seen enough war to know when someone was making demands rather than offering choices. Your planet qualifies because it kills the weak and makes the survivors impossibly tough, Vel continued. Most worlds in the galaxy are soft places where beings live easy lives. Your people have survived ice ages, plagues, disasters, and constant warfare. This has made you valuable to us. More reports flooded in from around the world. The alien ships were scanning everything, taking readings of military installations, population centers, and natural resources. They acted like they already owned the planet and were simply taking inventory. Roy Hassan arrived from the Pentagon with a briefing folder thick with classified documents. His face was grim as he spoke quietly to Alex and Emma. Our best weapons barely scratch their shields. Nuclear missiles just bounce off like raindrops. We are completely outmatched. The transmission changed, showing images of other worlds and species, creatures that look like walking tanks with 6 legs and armor plating, serpent beings that breathed acid and had claws like swords, things that seemed to be made of living shadow and could pass through solid matter. These are your new allies in the Deathworld Pact, Vel explained. Each species comes from a planet that would kill ordinary beings within moments. Each has been enhanced by our technology to become perfect weapons. You will join them in service to the hegemony. Emma studied the alien creatures on the screen with growing horror. Alex, look at their eyes. These beings are not allies. They are slaves. Every single one of them looks terrified or broken or both. The message showed battles across the galaxy where these Deathworld species fought against rebel planets and independent colonies. The violence was horrific, but what disturbed Alex most was how expendable the alien warriors seemed to be. They were thrown at enemies like ammunition rather than treated as living beings. You have 7 days to prepare for integration into the Pact, Vel announced. We will establish recruitment centers in your major population areas. Suitable individuals will be selected for enhancement and training. Your governments will provide full cooperation or face immediate occupation. The transmission ended, leaving Earth in stunned silence. Within hours, massive structures began growing from the ground in every major city. They appeared to be made of the same black metal as the ships and pulsed with the same strange lights. No human technology could affect them or even slow their construction. Alex called an emergency meeting with military leaders from around the world. The video conference showed dozens of grim faces as reports came in from every continent. The aliens were not making requests, they were taking over. We need to understand what we are really dealing with, Alex told the assembled leaders. This Deathworld Pact sounds like military service, but it feels more like slavery. We need to learn everything we can about these aliens and their empire. Ben Parker was among the first humans taken to the alien facilities. He had been a Marine sergeant before the ships arrived, and something about his service record caught their attention. The recruitment was not voluntary. Armed aliens simply appeared at his home and took him inside the black structures. Ben found technology that defied understanding. Machines that seemed to read his thoughts and evaluate his body down to the cellular level. Other humans were there too, all looking confused and frightened as alien devices scanned and prodded them. The aliens conducting the tests were not like Vel. They were smaller, with multiple arms and skin that changed color based on their mood. They treated the humans like livestock being evaluated for breeding or slaughter. This one shows excellent stress tolerance and combat adaptability, one alien noted while studying Ben. The genetic modifications should integrate well with his existing physiology. He will make a suitable shock trooper. Lisa White was taken from her job as a paramedic in Chicago. The aliens seemed particularly interested in humans who worked in dangerous or stressful conditions. Soldiers, police officers, firefighters, emergency medical workers, and others who faced danger regularly were their preferred targets. The testing continued for days, while the alien structures spread across the planet like an infection. Earth's governments tried to negotiate, but the aliens made it clear that cooperation was not optional. The hegemony had decided that Earth would join the Deathworld Pact, and human preferences were irrelevant. Emma worked frantically to analyze the alien technology and find some weakness that could be exploited. The energy readings suggested power sources beyond anything humans had ever imagined, but there had to be some limit to what they could do. They are evaluating us like we are resources to be harvested, she reported to Alex. The Deathworld Pact is not an alliance. It is a collection system for the most dangerous species in the galaxy. They want to turn us into weapons. As the seventh day approached, Alex realized that Earth faced a choice between slavery and extinction. The aliens had the power to destroy human civilization without effort, but they wanted something more valuable than a dead planet. They wanted soldiers who could survive anywhere and fight anyone. The invitation to join the Deathworld Pact was really a demand for Earth to become part of the hegemony war machine. Humanity was about to learn that the galaxy was far more dangerous than they had ever imagined, and they were being recruited to become part of that danger. The signing ceremony took place in orbit above Earth inside a massive alien station that had appeared overnight. Admiral Kate Sterling led the human delegation up to the strange vessel while millions of people watched from the surface below. The structure was unlike anything humans had ever built, with walls that seemed alive and corridors that changed shape as they walked through them. The main chamber was filled with creatures from nightmares, beings with too many eyes and arms that moved wrong, things that looked like insects the size of trucks with mandibles that could cut steel, creatures that seemed to be made of living rock with molten cores that glowed through cracks in their skin. These were the other members of the Deathworld Pact, and every single one of them looked like they had been built for war. Their weapons were integrated into their bodies. Their armor seemed to grow from their skin. They moved like predators even when standing still. Vel appeared on a platform above the assembled delegates, his form now revealed in full light. He was tall and thin with skin that shifted between silver and black. His face had too many angles and his eyes reflected light like mirrors. When he spoke, his voice carried the weight of absolute authority. Today we welcome Earth into the Deathworld Pact. Your species will serve alongside these other warriors in the grand expansion of the hegemony across the galaxy. In exchange for your military service, you receive protection from cosmic threats and access to technologies that will advance your civilization by thousands of years. Admiral Sterling reviewed the documents one final time through the translation device attached to her uniform. The terms seemed reasonable on the surface, but something felt wrong about the way the other species watched the ceremony. They looked like prisoners witnessing another capture rather than allies, welcoming new friends. The contract was written in a substance that felt warm to the touch and seemed to pulse with its own heartbeat. As Sterling signed her name, the document glowed briefly and then dissolved into her skin, leaving no trace except a small mark on her palm that looked like a star. "The pact is sealed," Vel announced. "Earth is now under hegemony protection and subject to hegemony law. Integration will begin immediately." Within hours of the signing, alien ships began landing at locations across Earth. They brought technology that seemed like magic to human observers. Machines that could build entire structures in minutes. Devices that could heal injuries that should have been fatal. Weapons that could destroy mountains with a single shot, but they also brought changes that human governments had not expected. The aliens began taking control of major cities, installing their own administrators and establishing new laws that humans had no say in creating. Earth's military forces were disbanded and replaced with alien overseers who supervised human activities with cold efficiency. Ben Parker found himself inside a training facility that had grown from the ground like a metallic forest. The structure was massive, with chambers that could simulate any environment in the galaxy. The training was unlike anything he had experienced in the Marines. They learned to operate weapons that could crack planets. They practiced combat in environments where the air was toxic and the gravity would crush normal humans. They underwent medical procedures that enhanced their bodies in ways that should have been impossible. "They are changing us," Lisa White whispered to Ben during one of their few rest periods. "I can feel it in my bones. My muscles are stronger than they were yesterday. My reflexes are faster. They are turning us into something that is not entirely human anymore." The modifications were subtle but constant. Enhanced muscles that could function in extreme temperatures. Improved organs that could process toxins that would kill ordinary humans. Nervous systems that could react to threats faster than thought. The aliens were upgrading humanity like software. Dr. Emma Walsh worked frantically to understand what was happening to the selected humans. The medical scanners showed changes happening at the genetic level. DNA was being rewritten to include sequences that had never existed in any Earth species. "They are not just training our people," she reported to Alex during a secret meeting. "They are creating a new subspecies of human design specifically for warfare. The modifications are permanent and will be passed to any children these people have." Meanwhile, Earth's governments discovered they had signed away more than they realized. The pact gave the hegemony mining rights to the entire solar system. They established military bases on the Moon and Mars without asking permission. They began extracting resources from asteroids and gas giants using technology that turned entire worlds into industrial sites. Roy Hassan tried to organize resistance among Earth's remaining military leaders, but found their communications monitored and their movements restricted. The aliens had ways of watching everything that happened on the planet. Privacy was a concept that no longer existed under hegemony rule. "We are not partners in this arrangement," Roy told Alex during a brief meeting in an old subway tunnel. "We are resources being processed for maximum efficiency. The other species in the pact are not allies. They are slaves who have been broken and remade to serve alien masters." The first groups of enhanced humans returned from training after 3 months. They looked the same on the surface but moved differently. They spoke in shorter sentences and showed less emotion than before. Their eyes had changed color slightly, taking on a metallic tint that reflected light strangely. Ben tried to reconnect with his family, but found the experience disturbing. His sister seemed afraid of him, even though he had not changed in any obvious way. His parents treated him like a stranger wearing their son's face. The modifications had changed something fundamental about how he related to other people. Lisa experienced similar problems when she returned to her old neighborhood. Children ran from her even though she tried to be friendly. Adults crossed the street to avoid her. Somehow, people could sense that she was different, even if they could not explain how the enhanced humans were organized into units and given their first assignments. They would serve as advanced scouts for hegemony expansion, exploring dangerous worlds and preparing them for colonization. Their job was to go places that would kill ordinary beings and survive long enough to establish. Hegemony Control. Emma made a disturbing discovery while analyzing blood samples from the enhanced humans. The modifications were designed to make them dependent on specific nutrients that could only be obtained from hegemony medical facilities. Without regular treatments, the enhancements would begin breaking down and eventually kill the host. They have created a biological leash, she explained to Alex. Our people can only survive if they continue serving the hegemony. Rebellion would mean death for anyone who has been modified. The true scope of hegemony control became clear as more alien ships arrived in Earth orbit. They brought news from other worlds in the Pact, and the stories were horrifying. Entire species had been modified beyond recognition. Planets had been strip-mined until they were uninhabitable. Populations had been reduced to breeding stock for producing more soldiers. The Rax delegation that visited Earth told stories of their homeworld being turned into a factory for producing weapons. Their children were taken at birth and raised in facilities where they never saw their parents. Their culture had been completely erased and replaced with hegemony programming. The Korth representative spoke of worlds where their people were forced to fight each other for the entertainment of hegemony officials. Winners earned better food and living conditions. Losers were recycled into biological components for medical experiments. Alex realized that Earth had not joined an alliance. They had been absorbed into an empire that treated entire species like disposable resources. The Deathworld Pact was a harvesting system designed to collect the most dangerous beings in the galaxy and turn them into weapons, but the aliens had made one critical mistake in their evaluation of humanity. They had assumed that being tough enough to survive a dangerous planet meant being willing to accept slavery. They had not considered that the same qualities that made humans good soldiers might also make them very dangerous enemies. As reports came in from around the solar system, Alex began to realize that the hegemony had given Earth access to technology and information that could potentially be used against them. They had also scattered enhanced humans throughout their empire, placing potential insurgents in positions where they could do maximum damage. The invitation to join the Deathworld Pact was beginning to look like the biggest mistake the hegemony had ever made. They had invited Earth into their empire, but they had no idea what they had really brought into their house. The war call came exactly 6 months after Earth joined the Deathworld Pact. Every enhanced human across the planet received the same message directly into their modified nervous systems. They were needed for the first major campaign, and failure was not an option. Ben Parker found himself aboard a massive transport ship alongside thousands of other enhanced humans. The vessel was unlike anything built on Earth, with walls that seemed to breathe and corridors that adjusted their size based on who was walking through them. The ship felt alive in ways that made his enhanced senses uncomfortable. The target was a group of 17 star systems that had declared independence from the hegemony 6 months earlier. The rebels called themselves the Free Colonies and had been preparing for war since their declaration. Intelligence reports showed they had built defensive platforms around their worlds and assembled a fleet of fast attack ships. Maria Santos had been a Navy captain before the enhancement process. Now she commanded a squadron of human vessels that had been upgraded with alien technology. The ships looked familiar on the outside, but their internal systems were completely foreign. Weapons that fired concentrated gravity, shields that bent space around the hull, engines that could tear holes in reality. "Remember your purpose," Vel broadcast to all human forces as they approached the combat zone. "You exist to absorb enemy. Fire while our primary forces maneuver for decisive strikes. Your survival is not important. Your sacrifice enables victory." The first battle took place near a mining colony on the edge of the target zone. Free colony ships emerged from hiding places among the asteroids, their weapons firing streams of energy that could cut through most known materials. The pact formation moved forward according to plan, with Deathworld species ships forming the front line. Ben watched from his position as a boarding specialist as the battle unfolded around them. Human ships took massive damage as they absorbed the initial enemy assault. Explosions lit up space as vessels were destroyed or crippled by rebel weapons. The casualty reports were horrifying, but the hegemony commanders seemed satisfied with the exchange rate. Something was wrong with the plan, though. The free colony ships were faster and more maneuverable than expected. They struck hard and then disappeared back into the asteroid field before hegemony forces could respond effectively. The rebels had been preparing for this fight much longer than intelligence had suggested. David Kim commanded a fighter squadron launched from one of the human carriers. His enhanced reflexes and improved coordination systems gave him an edge in combat, but the enemy pilots were skilled and desperate. They fought with the fury of people defending their homes rather than the discipline of professional soldiers. Santos. To all human units, Maria broadcast on a frequency that bypassed hegemony monitoring. The enemy is using the asteroid field for cover, but their exit routes are predictable. If we adjust our formation to block their escape paths, we can trap them. The suggestion was not part of the official battle plan. Human forces were supposed to maintain position and absorb damage while alien commanders made tactical decisions. But the enhanced humans had been given improved cognitive abilities along with their physical modifications, and those improvements were showing results that surprised everyone. Within minutes, human ships had reorganized themselves into a new formation that cut off rebel escape routes. The free colony vessels found themselves trapped between human forces and the advancing hegemony fleet. Their hit-and-run tactics became impossible when they could not run. Lisa, White, worked as a combat medic aboard one of the human ships. Her enhanced senses could detect injuries and medical problems that normal humans would miss. She watched as human casualties mounted during the battle, but noticed something that surprised her. The injury rates were lower than predicted, and recovery times were much faster than normal. "We are adapting to combat faster than expected," she reported to her commanding officer. "The modifications are not just making us stronger. They are making us learn and improve during actual fighting. Every minute we survive makes us more effective." The battle that hegemony planners expected to last several days was over in 18 hours. The free colony fleet had been completely destroyed or captured, and their mining colony had surrendered without requiring a ground assault. The speed and efficiency of the victory surprised both sides. Vel studied the battle reports with growing confusion. Human casualties were significantly lower than projected. More importantly, their tactical performance had improved dramatically during the fighting. The Deathworld species were supposed to be effective soldiers, but humans were showing capabilities that exceeded their predictions. How did they coordinate those formation changes? Vel demanded of his tactical staff. The plan did not include autonomous decision-making by Deathworld units. They acted without orders and achieved better results than our strategic computers predicted. Dr. Emma Walsh monitored communications from the fleet using equipment hidden in her research facility on Earth. The enhanced humans had developed their own communication protocols during the battle, sharing information in ways that allowed them to function as a unified force rather than individual units following orders. They are not just following their training, she realized. The modifications have enhanced their ability to work together as well as their individual capabilities. They are becoming something more than just enhanced humans. They are becoming a new kind of collective intelligence. The second battle took place near an agricultural world that supplied food to several rebel systems. The free colonies had concentrated their remaining forces around the planet, turning it into a fortress that bristled with defensive weapons. The hegemony plan called for a direct assault that would break through the defenses through sheer firepower. Ben found himself leading a boarding party tasked with capturing one of the orbital defense stations. The mission was supposed to be a suicide run designed to disable the station's weapons long enough for the main fleet to advance. The casualty projections were over 90%, but the enhanced humans had learned from their first battle. Instead of following orders exactly, they began modifying tactics based on real-time observations. Ben's team used the station's own defensive systems against it, turning captured weapons on other parts of the fortress. "This is incredible," David reported from his fighter as he watched the boarding operation. "They are not just surviving the mission, they are succeeding beyond all projections. The enemy defenses are falling faster than our computers said was possible." Maria coordinated the fleet-level attack while monitoring the progress of ground teams. The human forces were not just following the battle plan, they were improving it in real time based on what they learned during combat. Every engagement made them more effective than they had been before. The agricultural world fell in 3 days instead of the projected 2 weeks. The Free Colony defenders fought bravely, but they could not adapt fast enough to counter human tactics that improved faster than they could respond. The rebels found themselves fighting an enemy that learned from every mistake and never repeated the same error twice. Lisa worked in field hospitals that treated both human and alien casualties. She noticed that the other Deathworld species were beginning to watch the humans with something that looked like hope mixed with fear. The enhanced humans were succeeding where others had failed for centuries. "The RAX commander asked me how humans coordinate so effectively," she reported during a secure transmission to Earth. "He said his people have been fighting for the hegemony for over 200 years, but they have never seen tactical adaptation like what we demonstrated." The victory celebration aboard the hegemony flagship was subdued. Vel and his staff were pleased with the results, but disturbed by the implications. Human forces had achieved their objectives with minimal casualties, while displaying tactical innovations that had not been programmed into them. "They are exceeding design parameters," one of the alien scientists reported. The modifications were intended to enhance their physical capabilities and loyalty. "We did not anticipate improvements in creative thinking and group coordination." Emma continued monitoring communications from the human fleet. The enhanced soldiers were sharing information and techniques at a rate that suggested they were developing a group mind. Individual humans were becoming nodes in a larger intelligence that could process information and make decisions faster than any individual. "They are becoming something new," she realized. "Not just enhanced humans, but a new form of collective consciousness that can fight, learn, and adapt in ways that no single species has ever achieved." The hegemony created them to be weapons, but they are becoming something much more dangerous. The third battle was scheduled to take place at the rebel capital world, but it never happened. The free colonies surrendered unconditionally after seeing what had happened to their fleets and fortresses. The war that was supposed to establish human effectiveness in combat had instead demonstrated that the hegemony had created something beyond their ability to control. Ben returned to Earth with the rest of the human forces, but found that he could no longer think of himself as purely human. The enhancements had changed not just his body, but his mind and his connection to other enhanced individuals. He was part of something larger now, and that something was beginning to have ideas about the future that did not include serving alien masters forever. The discovery came 2 years after humanity's first combat deployment when Dr. Emma Walsh finally cracked the encryption on a hegemony database that had been left unguarded during a routine system update. What she found inside made her hands shake as she read through file after file of classified information. The hegemony was dying from the inside. Their empire stretched across thousands of star systems, but it was built on a foundation of exploitation and environmental destruction that was finally catching up with them. Their core worlds were becoming uninhabitable due to industrial pollution. Their resource extraction had stripped entire sectors bare. Their subject species were becoming increasingly difficult to control. Emma worked through the night, copying files and cross-referencing data while trying to understand the full scope of what she was reading. The Deathworld Pact was not about military expansion or protection from external threats. It was about finding species that could survive in the toxic wasteland the hegemony was creating. Alex Reed received Emma's report during a secure meeting in an abandoned subway station beneath New York City. The information was so dangerous that they could not risk transmitting it through any electronic system. The implications were staggering and terrifying. They have been planning this for over 50 years, Emma explained while showing Alex printouts of the classified files. The hegemony leadership knows their core worlds will be uninhabitable within a generation. They need somewhere to relocate their population, and they want Deathworld species to prepare those new homes for them. Earth was their primary target for relocation. The planet had the right atmospheric composition and gravity for hegemony physiology. More importantly, it had a human population that could be used as a workforce to build the infrastructure needed for a mass migration of aliens. The enhanced humans scattered across the galaxy were not just soldiers. They were an advanced scouting force evaluating planets and systems for potential hegemony colonization. Every mission they completed provided data about worlds that could serve as backup homes for alien refugees. Ben Parker learned about the discovery. During a brief shore leave on Earth, the enhanced humans had developed a communication network that operated below the threshold of hegemony detection. They could share information instantly across interstellar distances using quantum effects built into their neural modifications. "We are not being trained as soldiers," Ben realized as he processed the information. "We are being conditioned as slave labor for an alien evacuation plan. Once they have identified suitable worlds and prepared them for colonization, our usefulness as fighters will end. Then we become construction workers and servants." The revelation spread through the enhanced human population like wildfire. They had suspected something was wrong with their situation, but now they understood the true scope of hegemony plans. Earth would become an alien colony. Humanity would become a servant species. Their children would be raised as property of the new colonists. Maria Santos commanded a battle group patrolling the outer rim of hegemony space when she received the information. Her ships were officially hunting pirates and rebels, but Maria had begun using these missions to establish contact with other species that might be interested in changing the current arrangement. The Racks have been fighting for the hegemony for over 2 centuries, she reported during a quantum-encrypted conference with other human commanders. Their homeworld has been completely strip-mined. Their population has been reduced to military breeding stock. They remember what freedom was. And they want it back? David Kim worked as an intelligence officer attached to a mixed species unit that included Rax, Korth, and Neth personnel. His enhanced cognitive abilities allowed him to process alien languages and cultural patterns much faster than normal humans. What he learned was disturbing but potentially useful. "Every species in the Deathworld Pact has the same story," David explained during a secure briefing. "They were all conquered rather than recruited. They all lost their homeworlds to hegemony exploitation. They all have populations that remember freedom and hate their current situation. The other Deathworld species were not willing allies of the hegemony. They were prisoners who had been broken and remade to serve alien masters. But they were also experienced fighters who knew hegemony technology and tactics better than anyone except the hegemony themselves." Lisa White worked in medical facilities that treated personnel from all pack species. Her enhanced senses could detect stress hormones and emotional states that revealed the true feelings of alien patients. What she discovered was that every species harbored deep resentment against their hegemony overseers. They are all waiting for someone to give them hope, she realized. The modifications make them physically dependent on hegemony medical support, but they would risk death for a chance at freedom. They need leadership and coordination more than they need weapons. The plan that emerged from secret meetings among human commanders was audacious beyond anything attempted in galactic history. They would coordinate a simultaneous rebellion across multiple star systems using every Deathworld species in the Pact. The uprising would target hegemony command centers, supply lines, and communication networks. Emma provided technical support by analyzing hegemony systems for vulnerabilities that could be exploited during the rebellion. The aliens had built their empire to defend against external threats, but they had never considered the possibility of coordinated internal resistance. Their command structure depends on instantaneous communication across interstellar distances, she explained to Alex. If we can disrupt their quantum communication network, their forces will be cut off from central command. Individual sectors will have to make decisions without coordination from the core worlds. The rebellion would need to be perfectly timed to prevent the hegemony from responding effectively. Human forces scattered across the galaxy would need to strike simultaneously, while coordinating with other species who had their own reasons for wanting freedom. Ben worked with Rax engineers to develop methods for sabotaging hegemony equipment. Without detection, the aliens had built their technology to be maintained by subject species, which meant that sabotage could be disguised as routine maintenance problems. We can introduce cascade failures into their power systems, Ben explained. During a planning session, small problems that build into major system breakdowns over time. By the time they notice what is happening, it will be too late to prevent catastrophic failures. Maria established contact with rebel groups that operated in the sectors beyond. Hegemony control? These were species and worlds that had successfully resisted conquest and might be willing to provide support for a galaxy-wide uprising. The free colonies were just the beginning, she learned from intercepted communications. There are entire sectors that have declared independence from hegemony rule. They have been waiting for someone to strike at the core systems while they keep hegemony forces busy on the frontier. David worked to establish communication networks that could coordinate the rebellion without being detected by hegemony surveillance systems. The enhanced humans had quantum effects built into their neural modifications, and these could be used to create instantaneous communication across any distance. We can use our own enhancements against the people who gave them to us, David realized. The quantum effects that make us dependent on hegemony, medical support also allow us to communicate in ways they cannot monitor or block. The most difficult part of the plan was ensuring that all Deathworld species could survive the rebellion. The modifications that made them effective soldiers also made them dependent on hegemony medical support. Freedom would mean death unless they could find alternatives to alien medical technology. Lisa worked with Emma to develop treatments that could replace hegemony medical support using technology that humans could produce independently. The research was dangerous and had to be conducted in secret, but it was essential for the survival of any rebellion. We can synthesize most of the essential compounds using modified Earth biotechnology, Lisa reported. It will not be as effective as hegemony medical support, but it will keep people alive long enough to find better solutions. As the plan developed, it became clear that the rebellion would need to accomplish several objectives simultaneously. They would need to disrupt hegemony command and control systems, capture medical facilities to ensure survival of enhanced personnel, secure transportation to prevent alien reinforcement, and coordinate with external rebel groups to prevent hegemony. Forces from Regrouping. Alex coordinated the overall planning from Earth while trying to keep their activities hidden from hegemony surveillance. The aliens monitored human communications, but they had not anticipated that the enhancements they provided would allow humans to develop new forms of coordination. We have one chance to make this work, Alex told the assembled human leadership. If we fail, they will modify or eliminate us to prevent future problems. If we succeed, we will have changed the balance of power in the galaxy forever. The date was set for Liberation Dawn, a coordinated strike that would begin simultaneously across 47 star systems. Every enhanced human in the galaxy would participate, along with willing members of other Deathworld species and external rebel groups. The hegemony had invited Earth to join their pact because they thought humans would make good soldiers. They were about to learn that the best soldiers can also make the most dangerous enemies. Liberation Dawn began at exactly the same moment. Across 47 star systems as enhanced humans and their alien allies struck at the heart of the hegemony empire. The attacks were coordinated through quantum communication networks that the aliens had unknowingly built into their own slave soldiers. Ben Parker led the assault on the primary naval facility in the Centauri sector, a massive complex that served as the main staging area for hegemony military operations in this part of the galaxy. His team included Rax demolition specialists and Korth, infiltration experts who had been planning this moment for months. The facility's defenses were designed to repel external attacks from enemy fleets, not internal sabotage by personnel with legitimate access codes. Ben's team moved through the complex like they belonged there, because according to all hegemony records, they did belong there. Primary power coupling is located in Sector 7, reported his Rax partner through their shared communication link. Disabling it will trigger cascade failures throughout the entire complex. Estimated time to total system shutdown is 18 minutes. Alex Reed coordinated the Earth-based portion of the rebellion from the Global Defense Headquarters, which had been rebuilt as a hegemony administrative center. The alien overseers who had controlled Earth for 2 years found themselves cut off from their fleet and trapped on a world that had been secretly preparing for this moment. Defense stations throughout the solar system activated weapons that had been disguised as routine maintenance equipment. What the hegemony thought were communication relays were actually targeting systems for massive energy weapons, built using alien technology turned against its creators. All Earth orbital platforms are responding, reported Roy Hassan from the primary command center. Hegemony ships in Earth orbit are being systematically disabled. Their crews are requesting permission to surrender. The rebellion succeeded because it struck at every level of hegemony control simultaneously. While Ben's team sabotaged military installations, Maria Santos led a fleet action that captured the main hegemony supply depot in the Outer Rim. The depot contained enough resources to support rebel operations for years. Target their command vessels first, Maria ordered as her battle group engaged hegemony forces that were still trying to understand what was happening. Without coordination, their superior numbers become a disadvantage rather than an asset. David Kim worked with Neth phase shifters to infiltrate hegemony command centers throughout the galaxy. The ethereal aliens could pass through solid matter and appear inside supposedly secure facilities without triggering any alarms. Security is designed to keep people out, not to detect people who are already inside, David explained as his team materialized in the main control room of a sector command post. By the time they realize we are here, it will be too late to stop us. The hegemony response was swift but confused. Individual sector commanders tried to organize counterattacks without understanding the scope of the rebellion. They had never faced coordinated resistance from their own forces and had no procedures for dealing with internal uprising. Vel received reports of attacks across the Empire from his flagship, but the information was fragmented and contradictory. Communication networks that had functioned perfectly for centuries were suddenly failing at critical moments. Supply lines were being severed, command posts were going silent. How extensive is this rebellion? Vel demanded of his tactical staff. Are we dealing with isolated incidents or coordinated resistance? The answer came in the form of a broadcast that reached every corner of hegemony space. Maria Santos spoke directly to the galaxy from the bridge of her captured command ship, her words carried by the same communication system the hegemony used to control their empire. People of the galaxy, we are the species you know as the Deathworld Pact. For generations, we have served as weapons in wars we did not choose to fight. Today that service ends. The hegemony told us we were too dangerous for civilized space, fit only to serve as soldiers in their expansion. They were wrong about one thing: we are not just weapons, we are survivors, and survivors learn to overcome any threat. The broadcast continued with messages from representatives of every Deathworld species. The Rax spoke of their homeworld being strip-mined until it was uninhabitable. The Korth described how their children had been taken and raised as biological weapons. The Neth mourned worlds that had been turned into industrial wastelands. We did not choose to join the Deathworld Pact, the broadcast explained. We were conquered, enslaved, and modified to serve alien masters. But those modifications gave us abilities our captors did not expect. We learned to work together across species lines. We developed communication methods they could not monitor. We planned this moment for years while they believed we were loyal soldiers. Lisa White coordinated medical support for rebel forces throughout the galaxy. The enhanced humans and other Deathworld species needed specialized treatment to survive. Without hegemony medical support, and she had spent months establishing hidden medical facilities that could provide those services. The synthetic compounds are working better than expected, she reported to Alex during a brief pause in the fighting. We can keep people alive indefinitely using technology we can produce ourselves. The hegemony biological control system has been broken. The rebellion's success came from perfect coordination combined with intimate knowledge of hegemony weaknesses. Every enhanced human had spent years learning alien technology and tactics. Every member of the other Deathworld species had been forced to understand hegemony systems in order to maintain them. Dr. Emma Walsh provided technical support from her hidden laboratory on Earth, using captured hegemony databases to identify critical system vulnerabilities that rebel forces could exploit. Her research had revealed that the alien empire was far more fragile than it appeared. Their entire command structure depends on centralized control, she explained during a strategy briefing. Individual sectors cannot function independently for extended periods. If we can maintain pressure long enough, their empire will collapse from internal contradictions. The fighting continued for weeks as hegemony forces tried to regain control of their territory. But every successful rebel operation encouraged more species to join the uprising. Worlds that had been conquered generations ago suddenly remembered what freedom meant and began driving out their alien overseers. Ben found himself leading a mixed force of humans, Rax, and Korth in the liberation of a prison world where political dissidents had been held for decades. The facility was designed to be escape-proof, but the designers had never considered the possibility of rescue by people with legitimate access codes. These prisoners include leaders from dozens of species that were conquered by the hegemony, Ben reported as his team freed cell after cell of political prisoners. They have been planning resistance for years. All they needed was someone to give them hope. The prison break revealed another weakness in hegemony control. They had concentrated their most dangerous opponents in a few heavily guarded facilities, rather than scattering them across the galaxy. The rebellion was able to free thousands of experienced resistance leaders in a matter of days. David established communication with rebel groups that had been operating independently in the outer sectors of hegemony space. These were worlds and species that had successfully resisted conquest and maintained their independence despite constant pressure. The free colonies were just the beginning, David learned from intercepted transmissions. There are entire sectors that declared independence years ago. They have been waiting for someone to strike at the core systems while they keep hegemony forces busy on the frontier. The coordination between internal rebellion and external resistance created a strategic nightmare for hegemony commanders. They found themselves fighting on multiple fronts against enemies who understood their tactics and technology better than they understood themselves. Maria coordinated fleet actions that captured key hegemony shipyards and industrial facilities. The rebels needed to seize the means of production rather than simply destroying alien assets. They were fighting for the future, not just for revenge. We are not trying to destroy the galaxy, she explained to her mixed-species crew. We are trying to rebuild it based on cooperation rather than conquest. That means we need to capture infrastructure intact rather than turning everything into wreckage. The hegemony counterattack, when it came, was massive but ultimately ineffective. Their remaining fleets were designed to fight external enemies using established tactics. The Deathworld species knew all of those tactics because they had been forced to implement them for generations. Vel led the final hegemony assault on the rebel stronghold in the Centauri sector, bringing together the largest fleet assembled in centuries. The battle that followed would determine whether the rebellion succeeded or was crushed forever. We created these beings to serve us, Vel declared as his fleet approached the rebel positions. We enhanced them to be perfect weapons. Now we will demonstrate that weapons belong to those who wield them, not to those who are wielded. But the final battle proved that the hegemony had misunderstood what they had created. The Deathworld species fought not as individual weapons, but as a coordinated force that could adapt faster than any computer and think more creatively than any strategist. The thousand-year hegemony empire collapsed in 6 months. Some worlds surrendered peacefully when they realized resistance was hopeless. Others fought to the bitter end, but found themselves overwhelmed by opponents who knew their weaknesses better than they knew themselves. In the aftermath, as human ships patrolled space lanes that had been hegemony territory for centuries, Alex reflected on how completely the galaxy had changed. Earth had been invited to join a pact of slaves, but had instead become the catalyst for galactic liberation. The Deathworld Pact was dissolved and replaced by the Free Systems Alliance, a voluntary association of worlds committed to mutual defense and cooperation. Humanity found itself not as rulers of a new empire, but as equals among species that had learned to value freedom over power. They called our world hostile and thought it made us perfect weapons, Alex observed during the first Free Systems Alliance assembly. They forgot that surviving on a death world does not just make you dangerous. It teaches you that any system, no matter how powerful, can be overcome if you are willing to adapt and endure. The galaxy was free, and it burned with the light of possibility rather than the fires of oppression. The hegemony had invited Earth to join their empire, but instead they had invited their own destruction.